Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have some stories for you from the Tales from Tech Support subreddit. Before we start today, make sure to check out the Karma Stories Patreon where you can become a member of the Karma Crew. Over there, I release completely exclusive stories like the completely non-safe for work one that I released there a few days back. If you haven't already, make sure to check that out at patreon.com/karma stories. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's get our nerd on. This story comes to us from Law Techie. This is my job. I'm actually paid to do this. I'm staring up into the wheel wells of a Chevy Silverado pickup truck. I'm trying to explain to the driver that what I'm doing with my laptop and a bunch of antennas is perfectly normal, and he should leave me be. 1 week earlier, I'm working at a cybersecurity consulting firm during the COVID pandemic. A colleague has sold an engagement that requires 3 consultants to actually go on premises at a client site for 2 or 3 days. They really want me on site. I don't like flying under normal conditions, so I tell my colleague that it's perfectly sane to drive 1,200 miles each way instead of fly. I love road trips, and it's perfect early fall weather for a convertible. I let my direct manager know that my response times will be a bit longer. I'm working on a few other client projects right now, so I plan to do research and writing in the evenings. This is going to be fun, I think. I tell everyone else in my practice group to not let it get out that I'm doing this road trip. My boss might be cool with it, but the execs will hate that I'm not taking PTO for the trip. 3 days before I'm supposed to leave, I get an urgent email from a private equity client. They've hired us to do technical due diligence in the past. They're usually fun, fast-paced projects, and we bill aggressively on them. The PE client is considering investing in Copperbolt, a company that makes devices and software for schools, public libraries, and other similar institutions. It's a neat package all a high school's IT needs in a 2-unit rack mount device. It offers a web server, content filter, file storage, grading, learning management, support for surveillance cameras, and more. Copperbolt can remotely support users over an internet connection, so there's no need for local IT staff. The PE firm wants us to see if there are any serious problems with the Copperbolt box and software. We get 2 of the devices overnighted to us. One goes right to Oscar, a young pen tester. The other ends up in the conference room I've taken over. We're the only 2 people in the building this week. Just to get some familiarity with it, I set it up. It's pretty slick. For Windows users, there's a setup wizard. For everything else, the Copperbolt box has an admin webpage. I connect it to a simple wired network consisting of my laptop and a home router. It lets me create an admin user, so I create admin, NIMDA, and go from there. It seems to work fine, and I've got too many other things to do today. I'll let Oscar take a more rigorous approach to it. The rest of my day is a bunch of meetings. One of my firm's other clients is in the automotive space. I'm listening in on their call like an Alexa, waiting for my name. They're building some kind of autonomous driving device that can be retrofitted to buses and trucks. An interesting slide comes up listing all the wireless interfaces this thing has. 2 of them are new to me. The client doesn't think this is a problem because trucks and buses, move. It's not possible to hack something that's moving at speed. None of their simpler devices have been attacked, and there are thousands in the field. Now, I want to learn more. On a previous engagement, I built a wireless survey device. Essentially, it's a 3-year-old laptop connected to a bunch of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth cards, held together with lots of monoprice cables, Velcro, and zip ties. This junior high science fair project worked well enough to grab WPA handshakes and convince a client to offer a guest network and go WPA Enterprise for everything else. It's been stowed behind a filing cabinet since then. I dust it off and start connecting cheap software-defined radios to see if I can get all the frequencies of those truck and bus devices. Perhaps I can sniff some traffic on my road trip and learn something. While reconnecting and testing this science project, I noticed something. There's an open wireless network called Copperbolt 2BB048 that I hadn't noticed before. I can associate the network and go to the admin page. It's the same admin page I saw on my Copperbolt box. I'm guessing Oscar hasn't configured his yet, So I make a new root user as a joke. I make my way over to Oscar's cubicle. The months out of date calendars and dead office plans are a nice nod to the zombie theme. All we need is the flickering light to complete the scene. Oscar has headphones on and is clearly working on a deliverable. I'm not going to disrupt his flow. His Copperbolt box is on his desk, powered down. Well, I'm not as clever as I think. I hacked my own device. I spend a minute or two just staring into space, trying to remember how I set up the Copperbolt box. I don't remember a checkbox that read, "Leave gaping hole in your security." I think I'd have unchecked it. Oscar has taken off his headphones to toss a foam vendor swag thing at me. I ask Oscar to set his one up now. In exchange for this, I'll finish his deliverable. I'm finishing up the executive summary and starting to make sure that all the parts line up. Every vulnerability has to have a corresponding recommendation. I just don't want to have a stupid recommendation like fixing an unpatched end-of-life system with a single-use sign-on. Oscar yells to me he's done setting up his Copperbolt device. It's connected to our network wirelessly, but doesn't let me create new users without authorization. After an hour of factory resets, we finally figure it out. Oscar's been using the Windows Wizard. I'm using the web admin instead. We found a border condition. At first boot, the device offers an open network and an IP address. The wizard turns Wi-Fi off if it's not configured and disables the setup script. The web admin page leaves Wi-Fi on if it's not configured and leaves the setup script and page when you wirelessly connect. I'm looking at the setup script. I can fix this in 20 lines of code. No, the specifics aren't relevant to this. The cost to fix this and the brand damage from a breach are a price offset for the buyers. We aren't paid to fix the problem. We're paid to identify problems to fix and maybe get paid to fix them. And thanks, I'll let the client know that there's an issue. I try to write this up in 2 lines, since that's all a VC wants to see during the last few days of an acquisition. I realize that the largest risk is the already deployed devices, since Copperbolt patching requires the admin to manually download and install the patch. I spend around 20 minutes trying to write 2 sentences that convey the risk and impact. I then realize it's not definite enough to be useful, since it's theoretical. I need to show that in-field devices are vulnerable. Now, I just need to find some. I also need to pack for my trip and do some last-minute maintenance on the car. I don't want to break down somewhere in between here and Kansas. I'm packing a varied wardrobe so I can at least blend in a bit. Mask of sanity and all that. And it hits me. There's probably some unique term in the admin page. There are probably some locations that just gave this box a public IP. Google indexed it, I'm sure. I try some searches, and between some odd ads, I find a handful of locations. I soon have a cross-country map with a handful of Copperbolt T1020s and the institutions they live in. I'm going on a road trip. I think I can bill the mileage. To be continued. Alright, everybody down in the comments for this one was so happy that Law Techie was back and writing stories for Tales from Tech Support. However, I'm sitting here thinking the last story that Law Techie posted had a to be continued at the end, and that was 5 months ago without an update. So, kinda hoping we get an update on this one, but I'm not gonna hold my breath. This story comes to us from Podurama. I had a Monty too, but he was called Dennis. Dennis claimed to have come from the world of big corporate IT and moved to a different type of engineering at the small company for a change of pace on his way to slowing his career down. This company had a fair few VLANs and needed layer 3 switching. As such, they had some 48-port Meraki layer 3 switches in their rack. Dennis was given the full rundown on their switch config as he declared he needed to know all of these things. We received an urgent call one day. There had been an IT theft. Our layer 3 is missing. To say we were confused was an understatement. On to the Meraki dashboard. All devices present. All VLANs routing as expected. We call him back to say everything is fine, and he says he's getting the police involved and we better get over here. So after an hour's drive, I arrive on site to meet the fuming Dennis and the company owner who is confused and perturbed by the situation. This was a small business. While it was a big factory with lots of machines, there were only about 50 employees. Dennis was irate about the theft of a device, but I asked the owner, was anything in the business not working? No, everything was functioning as normal. Dennis is in a grump, and he frog marches us to the comms room, talking about needing cameras installed and calling the police to log an incident. We get to the comms room. You said we have layer 3 switching in place. Well, where's my layer 3? Pardon? Where is our layer 3? It is missing. At this point, my brain is struggling to operate on his level. I'm failing to see his issue. There is a slight possibility I think I know what he is thinking, but nobody should be thinking this. Could you explain? Dennis says in an angry tone. What is missing from this rack? Nothing. It's identical to how it was left 18 months ago when I installed all the new hardware. At which point I got my phone out, opened Google Photos, searched for the location, and found the rack photos I took after completing the install. Look, here are the pictures from the original install. Aha, so you were ripping us off. There never was a layer 3. Oh dear God, he was thinking that. Look, at the top there's layer 1, then midway up the rack there's the layer 2 switch, but where is the third? To say this was said with the world's most smug face was an understatement. Right, we have just been accused of theft by a man who claims to have worked in corporate IT, and believes layer 3 switching means 3 physical devices, and we are in front of his boss. Over the next few minutes, it was like a subtle game of verbal chess, where I got Dennis to nail his flag to the mast that he was an expert, and in his expert opinion, the device was never in fact installed, let alone missing. Not only did he successfully dig himself a lovely hole, but the accusations of improper work and invoicing for devices that were never delivered were just the chef's kiss. If we were in a restaurant, a snooty French waiter would have walked up saying, I see you've ordered the JCB excavator for 1. Would you like the bucket scoop as well to make this hole a bit bigger, sir? It was then I chose to explain in a way he could understand. If someone asks you to give them a hand, are they asking for assistance or a body part? Assistance, of course. So, do you, with your high-level corporate IT experience, think that layer 3 switching means 3 devices, one above the other? Or could it also be a reference to the logical capabilities of a device referencing layer 3 of the OSA model of networking? The penny dropped far quicker for his boss than it did for Dennis. The boss took me for a word outside, apologizing every step of the way. The next day, we were informed that his role of IT coordinator, which he had self-created in the company after joining, was no longer, and they were going back to individuals logging tickets directly with us. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Langagger90. It says, was he actively trying to get fired? Because with that level of incompetence, I can see why it took him 18 months to succeed. Another commenter down below called TRRO16P said, the phrase thick as a brick comes to mind about his IT knowledge. My guess when he said he came from the big corporate world of IT, he failed to mention that he was the guy that carried the computer equipment that was getting installed and repaired. What a clown. Yeah, this guy just completely doubled down on the stupid. You know, sometimes it's better to have people think you an idiot than open your mouth and prove it. Could you imagine if they had actually called the police out and explained the whole situation to them? Although it might be difficult unless they had somebody from the police department that was actually well versed in how corporate IT works. This story comes to us from Zolish. The Bible forbids Wi-Fi. This is a short story, but I found it weird enough to post. For context, my boyfriend broke his phone and ordered another one through Asurion. They accidentally gave him a locked phone, so he was unable to access his cell service and will need to swap it out for an unlocked phone. He told me that he was going to go to the garage to get some work done and won't be able to communicate with me. He's a mechanic at a small Mennonite, ex-Mennonite business. When he got there, he was surprised that he was able to text me because their third-party service added his phone to the network. This is where I became confused. Why did he need a third party to add his phone to the network? Do they not have employee or guest Wi-Fi? This is how I came to find out his boss's church forbids the use of Wi-Fi networks. I am not only bothered by the fact that a church is dictating how another business operates, but also by the fact that they have that rule in the first place. Where in the Bible did they forbid the use of Wi-Fi? I'm being sarcastic here. I know that Wi-Fi is not in the Bible. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Mr. Moldy. It says, "It's not the Bible that forbids it. It is the church's stance that certain technology disrupts values. I am guessing the owner belongs to a more conservative Mennonite church." Another commenter called Pastor Blinky said, "Mennonites just have a very weird relationship with technology. They dress and act like the Amish, but drive around in giant vans. The thing with religion and the Bible is anyone can claim anything based on any passage. It's the original choose your own adventure book." This is completely true. There is a passage that lets me know that the Bible did, in fact, know about Wi-Fi. This is in Corinthians, and it says, "So likewise ye, except ye utter by tongue the words easy to be understood, how shall it be known what is spoken? For ye shall speak into the air." Clearly, they knew about Wi-Fi. I mean, come on. This story comes to us from Half Empty. Just throw it out. I worked for a GovTech company a number of years ago that tried to market itself like a gaming company would. Ultra slick image and lots of "what's up fellow kids" behavior. We moved offices, and shortly after said move, tons of boxes were shoved into the network closet. I needed to get at a few things and shifted some boxes. A C-level walked by and said, "Oh, that stuff shouldn't have moved with us, just throw it out." I wasn't going to get blamed for throwing out important stuff, so I opened the boxes. Tech goodies galore, all functional. I asked the same C-level if we should keep it. He outright yells at me, "I said throw it out." So I did, into mine and half the team's bags. Just some highlights of stuff that was thrown out. An Asus gaming laptop, brand new, never on the MDM. 2 Sonos Bluetooth speakers, brand new. A Google Glass headset. Brand new Beats headphones, still shrink wrapped. 14 Raspberry Pi kits. A 30-piece precision toolkit. A blue podcasting microphone. 4 Samsung tablets. Everything was either brand new or only slightly used and easily wiped of data. Myself, IT, and engineering had a field day. I still have the Asus laptop to run some legacy software, and my partner still uses one of the tablets. In all, there was probably about $10,000 worth of stuff in those boxes that we threw out. I still get junk from employers, but this was definitely the most memorable. You know, bringing home technology from one of the places you work at when they're pretty much done with it and it's not worth anything to the company is an absolutely wonderful thing. This is what happened to me when I was working at the furniture and electronics leasing company. Under that guy, you know, screw you, Rick. Yeah, that guy. To this day, my kids still use 2 of the laptops that were written off because something was broken on them. I brought them home and I fixed them very easily, I might add. Now my kids use them to play Roblox on a daily basis. This story comes to us from Pepper Ann, 1 in a million. Feels so good when a simple solution works. Here's a simple, sweet palette cleanser for all you hardworking IT professionals who have messy troubleshooting problems. I'd set up a couple of wireless access points for my parents because they live in a big old brick house, and their router signal wasn't penetrating throughout everywhere that they needed it. Specifically, I set one up in the back room of the house furthest from the router, and one in the living room because they needed a strong signal there for their Roku. I tried to name the networks the same so that my parents' devices would switch seamlessly between them, but for some reason the iPad would prefer to stay connected to a faint signal than switch to a stronger one. That was beyond the limits of my IT knowledge. I'm savvy but no expert. So I named the back one back room and the other one living room. And fortunately, my mom was more than capable of using the settings menu to switch as needed. I set up the Roku for them and connected it to living room, and it functioned fine for a number of years. After those years, the wireless access point in the living room died completely, so I said I'd look at it when I was there next. My mom had told me that they'd switched ISPs and their new router was much stronger, so I decided to just reconfigure the Roku to use that. Unfortunately though, my parents had failed to warn me that they'd lost the remote for the Roku, and had been using the remote control app on their phones, which connected the Roku over Wi-Fi, which was now broken. So I found myself in a bit of a pickle. How can I reconfigure the Roku to connect to Wi-Fi when the only way of controlling it is through the Wi-Fi that it isn't currently connected to? I thought it was a long shot, but I decided to try swapping the wireless access point from the back room and renaming it to Living Room and see if the Roku would connect to it automatically. I honestly expected it to fail. How often is a front-facing username important in IT? I assumed, in my completely inexpert way, that there would be some kind of unique identifier for the access point other than its name. But I tried it, and it worked. I got connected to the Roku, changed its settings to connect to the now adequate main Wi-Fi, and then put the access point back where I'd taken it from, after renaming it again, of course. Is there any better feeling than when a simple solution just works? Sometimes, especially in the IT world, it is the simplest of solutions that will actually get the job done. Another way to handle this one and be lazy at the same time would be to sit on your couch, open up your phone, turn on the wireless hotspot, and name it to Living Room. I bet it would have picked up on that as well. Alright, I think we'll end this one here. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us on your preferred podcasting platform, and if you're on YouTube, drop a like on the video please, it really does help us out. I thank you all for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.